All right, let's talk program design. If you're gearing up for that NSCA exam, you know this chapter is a big one. It's really the heart of everything we do as trainers. So today, we're going to break down chapter 15. I'm talking about the exact blueprint you need to build killer resistance training programs, the kind the NSCA expects you to master. So let's just dive right in.
So here's our game plan. We're going to build this thing from the ground up, step by step. First, the core principles, the absolute must-knows. Then, we'll figure out who we're training. After that, we'll actually structure the workout, set all those key variables like reps and sets, and finally, we'll look at the big picture, long-term progression. It all flows together, you'll see.
All right, first things first, the foundation. Everything we do in program design comes back to just four core principles. Honestly, you can think of them like the laws of physics for training. They're non-negotiable. And listen, the NSCA loves to ask questions about these, so if you can lock these four down, you are already way ahead of the curve.
So our first principle is specificity. You'll probably see this on the exam as the SIID principle, which stands for Specific Adaptation to Impose Demands. It's actually really simple when you break it down. It just means the body gets good at exactly what you ask it to do. You want to improve your squat? Well, you've got to squat. Doing 1,000,000 bicep curls isn't going to make your squat stronger. The training has to look like the goal, period.
Okay, principle number 2 is overload. This one's the engine of all progress. Look, for your body to change, whether that's getting stronger or building muscle, you have to give it a reason to. You have to apply a stress that's a little bit more than what it's already used to. If the workout is easy, if it's not challenging, well, the body has absolutely no reason to adapt. It's like they say, right? Nothing grows in the comfort zone. No overload, no progress. Simple as that.
Now this one, progression, goes hand in hand with overload. Think about it this way. If overload is the initial spark, progression is how you keep that fire going. See, as your client gets stronger, what used to be challenging, it becomes their new normal. So progression is just the process of continuing to add a little more stress over time, maybe a little more weight, another rep, to make sure they keep adapting and don't hit that dreaded plateau. And our fourth and final principle is variation. This is basically just strategically changing things up over time. Things like the exercises you choose, the volume, the intensity. It's not just about keeping the body adapting and avoiding overtraining, which is super important. It's also about keeping your client from getting bored out of their mind. I mean, you wouldn't want to eat chicken and broccoli for every single meal, right? Same goes for workouts. Variation is what keeps things fresh, fun, and effective in the long run.
Okay, so we've got our 4 principles. They're our rulebook. But a rulebook is kind of useless if you don't know what game you're playing, right? So before we even think about writing a single set or a rep, we have to figure out who we're training. The client is everything.
And that brings us to step 1, which is always the initial consultation and the fitness evaluation. This is where you put on your detective hat. You're trying to figure everything out. What's their training history? What are their strengths, their weaknesses? Are there any injuries we need to worry about? But most importantly, this is where you work with them to set really clear, specific goals. This isn't just checking boxes, guys. This is the roadmap for their entire program. So when we talk about resistance training goals, they usually fall into one of these 4 big buckets. You've got muscular endurance, that's all about being able to perform a lot of reps, lasting longer. Then there's hypertrophy, which is the one most people think of, just building bigger muscles. Then you have muscular strength, which is about lifting the heaviest weight possible for a few reps. And finally, muscular power, which is all about being explosive, moving weight fast. Which one of these your client chooses, well, that's going to change literally everything about the program we design. Okay, so now we have our principles and we know our client's goal. The why and the who are covered. Now it's time to get into the how. Let's actually start building a workout from the ground up. And the first question we have to answer is, well, how often are they actually going to train? And here you go. This table is pure gold for the exam. The NSCA lays out some really clear guidelines for training frequency based on experience level. So for a total beginner, a novice, you're looking at about 2 to 3 times a week. Once they get into that intermediate stage, you can bump it up to maybe 3 or 4 times. And for your advanced folks, it could be anywhere from 3 to 6 sessions a week, usually with some kind of split routine. Definitely commit these numbers to memory. All right, this is another huge one for the exam, the difference between core and assistance exercises. It's pretty straightforward. Core exercises are your big multi-joint movements that use a ton of muscle. Think squats, deadlifts, bench press. Assistance exercises are usually single joint targeting smaller muscle groups like a bicep curl or a tricep extension. I like to think of it like building a house. The core exercises are the foundation and the walls. The assistance exercises, they're the paint and the trim.
Both are important, but you got to build the foundation first.
So, how do we order these in a workout? Well, there's a golden rule here, and it's all about energy and focus. You always want to do the most complex, most neurologically demanding stuff first while you're fresh. That means any power exercises, like cleans or snatches, they go at the very beginning. After that, you move on to your other big, heavy core exercises, and then you finish up the workout with the smaller, less taxing assistance work. It just makes sense, right? Do the hardest stuff when you have the most in the tank.
And this right here is a perfect example of what that looks like in a real workout. See how it's structured? It starts with the power clean. That's our explosive, high-skill movement. Then it moves into the heavy core stuff, the push press and the front squat. And only at the end does it get to the assistance work, like the triceps pushdowns. This is exactly how you want to structure a session to get the most bang for your buck on those big, important lifts.
Okay, so we've got the skeleton of our workout, we know the frequency, we know the exercise order. Now it's time to get into the details, the stuff that really creates the results. We're talking about dialing in the load, the reps, the volume, and the rest periods. This is where the magic happens.
So the big question is, how much weight should your client lift? Well, you've got a few different tools to figure that out. The classic way is using a percentage of their 1 rep max, or RM. But there are also more modern, flexible methods like RPE, rating of perceived exertion, and RIR, or reps in reserve. These are great because they let you adjust the weight based on how the client is actually feeling on that specific day. Let's talk a little more about RPE because it's such a useful tool. All it is you ask your client after a set, on a scale of 0 to 10, how hard was that? With 10 being, I couldn't have possibly done another rep. It's so powerful because it gives you real-time feedback on intensity. And it means you don't have to put a brand new client through a potentially risky 1 rep max test to figure out where to start.
Okay, so how do we apply progression? How do we know when to add more weight? This is another one you absolutely need to know for the exam, the 2 for 2 rule. It's a super practical guideline. It goes like this. If a client can perform 2 or more reps beyond their goal on the last set, and they can do that for 2 workouts in a row, then it's time to bump up the weight. It's a simple, objective way to make sure they're always progressing.
Now, let's talk about rest periods. And let me be clear, rest is not just wasted time. It is a critical variable that you have to program based on the client's goal. Just look at the chart. For endurance, you're keeping rest super short, like 30 seconds or less. For hypertrophy, it's a bit more moderate. But if the goal is pure strength or power, you absolutely need those longer rest periods, 2 to 5 minutes, so the energy systems can recover and your client can give maximum effort on every single set.
All right, so we've built a fantastic single workout session. But a great program is way more than just one good workout, right? It's about stringing those workouts together over weeks and months. So for this last part, we're going to zoom out and look at the long-term strategy. This is how we plan for success that lasts.
And this right here is a concept called periodization. This is really where the art and science of coaching come together. It's basically planning out the training year in phases, or blocks. So you can see here, you might have a block focused on building a base with endurance, then a block for building muscle size or hypertrophy, and then you might move into a strength block to peak. By changing the focus like this, you can manage fatigue, prevent plateaus, and make sure your client keeps making progress over the long haul. It's funny, this brings us full circle, right back to where we started. This quote really says it all. At the end of the day, your ability to be a great trainer and design great programs, it all comes down to how well you understand and apply those 4 core principles: specificity, overload, progression, and variation. They are the foundation for absolutely everything. So I want to leave you with one final question to kind of tie this all together. Now that you have this whole blueprint, if you have a client and their only goal is to get as strong as humanly possible, what is the single most important variable you need to focus on manipulating? I want you to really think about that. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Thanks so much for tuning in, and seriously, good luck with that exam.